When the Martins brought home their new golden retriever puppy, Charlie, the house felt alive again. After losing their old dog Max a year ago, the silence had become unbearable. Charlie's playful energy filled every room, and the kids couldn't stop laughing at his clumsy jumps and tail chases. But there was something odd about him too, something they didn't talk about. Every night when the family went to bed, Charlie wouldn't sleep. He'd sit near their bedroom doors, perfectly still, staring inside, his soft brown eyes reflecting the dim glow of the hallway light. At first they thought it was cute. Puppies often missed their mothers and needed time to adjust. But nights turned into weeks, and still, Charlie's pattern didn't change. He never whimpered, never barked, just walked. Sarah, the mother, sometimes woke in the middle of the night and caught those glowing eyes peeking through the crack of the door. The stillness unnerved her. She mentioned it to her husband, Mike, but he laughed it off, saying, "He's probably guarding us. That's what dog." But deep inside, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that Charlie wasn't guarding them. He was studying them. The way his eyes moved, slowly from face to face, felt deliberate, almost calculating. She began to notice how, during the day, he avoided sleeping too deeply. It was as if he saved his energy for nighttime. The kids adored him, but Sarah found herself unsettled by the intensity of his gaze, especially when she caught him staring at the baby monitor in the nursery. One night, Mike decided to record. He set up a small camera in the living room, angled toward the hallway that connected all their bedrooms. "Maybe we'll see what's keeping him up," he said, half amused. They expected to catch nothing more than a curious dog sniffing around, maybe reacting to some noise outside. But what the footage revealed the next morning made both of them sit frozen in disbelief. At exactly 2:43 a.m., Charlie lifted his head sharply, ears twitching, his body stiffened, and his gaze fixed toward the children's room. The air seemed heavy in the silent clip. Then, as if responding to something unseen, Charlie walked slowly down the hall. He stopped midway, looking back toward the parents' door, as if checking if they were awake. Then he turned his head again toward the kids' room, low growls rumbling in his throat. Sarah's heart raced as they watched. Mike leaned closer to the screen, rewinding and replaying the moment. Just as Charlie stepped into the children's room, something else flickered in the corner of the video, a shadow that wasn't supposed to be there. It wasn't a trick of the light. It moved differently. Something tall, faint, almost human-shaped passed right behind the doorway before disappearing entirely. Charlie froze, his fur standing on end, his teeth bared. Sarah screamed when the shadow seemed to move closer to the crib. The video crackled, distorted, and for a few seconds the image glitched, then cleared again. Charlie had jumped onto the crib, growling, staring into thin air, as if protecting the sleeping baby from something invisible. When they checked on the baby that morning, she was safe, sound asleep. But the strange scratches on the crib's wooden frame hadn't been there before. Mike tried to rationalize it. Maybe a glitch. Maybe static made a weird shadow. But Sarah knew what she saw. Charlie wasn't acting like a normal puppy. That night, she stayed awake on the couch, watching him in the dark. He sat facing the hallway again, motionless, his body tense. Hours passed, and just when Sarah's eyes began to close, she heard it, a whisper, soft, like breath sliding through the walls. Charlie's head turned sharply toward the sound, his growl deepening. The whisper came again, this time from the baby monitor. A faint voice crackling through the static. "He sees me." Sarah's blood ran cold. The monitor flickered with static, and for a split second, the screen showed something behind the baby's crib, a silhouette, tall and still. Charlie leapt to his feet, barking furiously at the monitor, his teeth bared and body trembling. The power suddenly flickered, plunging the house into brief darkness. When the lights came back on, Charlie was sitting again, perfectly calm, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Sarah couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The puppy turned his head toward her slowly, as if knowing she'd heard it too. His eyes weren't scared. They were watchful, almost warning her. That night, she finally understood Charlie wasn't watching them sleep. He was watching for something else entirely. The following morning, Sarah told Mike everything. The whisper, the flickering lights, the voice on the baby monitor. He tried to reassure her, though his voice trembled slightly. "It's just interference," he said, forcing a smile. But deep down, he felt the same unease gnawing at him. He decided to install a second hidden camera, one with night vision right above the baby's crib. "If something's going on, we'll catch it," he said, though the thought chilled him. That night they didn't sleep. Mike and Sarah sat in the living room, watching the live feed from both cameras on the tablet. Charlie lay in the hallway again, silent and alert. For the first 2 hours, nothing happened. Just the faint hum of the baby monitor and the rhythmic breathing of their daughter. But then a sudden drop in the room's temperature made Sarah shiver. The baby's mobile, hanging above her crib, started spinning slowly on its own. Mike leaned closer to the tablet. "Do you see that?" he whispered. The mobile continued to turn, though no air vent was open, no breeze stirred the curtains. Charlie stood up, growling low. On the screen, something began to form in the corner of the nursery. A distortion, a faint outline that shimmered like heat waves. Slowly it took shape, a dark human-like figure, tall and hollow-eyed, hovering near the crib. Sarah's scream caught in her throat. Charlie lunged into the nursery, barking wildly, snapping his jaws at the figure. But the creature didn't move. It leaned closer to the baby instead, its face turning toward the camera, 2 hollow sockets where eyes should have been, and a mouth that stretched too wide to be human. The screen flickered violently, then the figure vanished in an instant. Mike ran upstairs, bursting into the nursery. The baby was crying. Charlie was standing on his hind legs against the crib, barking at the wall. But there was something else now. A mark burned into the paint, a long black streak like soot. The smell of something metallic filled the room. Sarah clutched the baby to her chest, whispering prayers, while Mike stared at the mark in horror. The next morning they brought in a priest. He listened carefully as Sarah recounted everything, from Charlie's nightly vigilance to the whispers and shadows. The priest's expression grew darker with each word. "Animals sense what we cannot," he said quietly. "Your dog isn't watching you, he's protecting you." He sprinkled holy water in every corner of the nursery, murmuring prayers. Charlie followed closely, never taking his eyes off the crib. For a few nights, peace returned. The baby slept soundly. Charlie even rested by their bed instead of watching the hallway. Sarah started to believe it was over, until one night, Charlie began to whimper in his sleep. His body jerked as if fighting something unseen. Sarah reached to comfort him, but the moment her hand touched his fur, the lights flickered again. The baby monitor crackled, and through the static came a faint giggle, a child's laugh, but not their daughter's. Mike grabbed the monitor, staring at the screen. The crib was empty. Sarah froze, her heart stopping in her chest. They ran into the nursery. The baby was gone. The crib stood open, the blanket twisted, but Charlie was nowhere to be seen either. Panic consumed them. Then they heard barking from the basement, frantic and shocked. Mike rushed down the stairs, his flashlight trembling in his hand. What he found in the basement stopped him cold. Charlie was standing in front of the old storage door, barking furiously at it. The baby lay on the floor behind him, unharmed but crying. Mike scooped her up, his hands shaking. He turned back toward the door and saw it. The same black streak, fresh and smoking, stretching from the floor to the ceiling. Something had tried to come through, and Charlie had stopped it. That night, as Sarah rocked the baby back to sleep, she looked at Charlie lying by the crib again, exhausted but watchful. She finally understood that his staring wasn't strange. It was sacrifice. He was standing guard every night against something that wanted to harm them. But deep in her heart, she knew it wasn't over. Because when she looked at the baby monitor one last time before sleeping, the reflection in the lens didn't show one pair of glowing eyes. It showed two. The next evening, Mike and Sarah could barely speak. Every sound in the house felt amplified. The creak of the floorboards, the soft hum of the refrigerator, even the baby's gentle breathing. Charlie never left the nursery doorway now. His once playful eyes looked older, almost burdened. When Sarah tried to coax him downstairs, he refused, growling softly toward the window as though something waited outside. At midnight, the air changed again, a stillness so thick it felt like time itself paused. The baby monitor clicked on by itself, and this time there was no whisper, no static, just silence. Then faintly, a voice that sounded eerily familiar spoke. "You shouldn't have brought him here." Mike froze. "Who is this?" he shouted into the monitor, his voice trembling. The reply came softer, crueler. "He knows what I am." Sarah clutched the baby, shaking. The temperature in the room dropped, her breath visible in the air. Charlie began to snarl, fur bristling. The lights dimmed and the same tall shadow began to form again near the corner of the nursery. But now it wasn't vague or flickering. It was clear, solid, wearing what looked like torn clothing, its face half hidden, its eyes burning like embers. It stepped forward, each movement accompanied by a faint crackling sound, like fire smothered under ash. Mike lunged for the crucifix hanging near the door, shouting for Sarah to get out. But before she could move, the shadow reached for the crib. Charlie sprang between them, barking louder than he ever had before. The room shook as the two forces collided. An invisible shockwave sent toys flying off the shelves. The baby wailed as Sarah stumbled backward, shielding her with her arms. The creature hissed, its form bending unnaturally, trying to reach past Charlie. The dog didn't retreat. His small body glowed faintly under the flickering light, his growl deep and relentless. For a fleeting moment, Sarah swore she saw something shimmering above him. The faint outline of another dog, older, stronger, standing beside him. The sight took her breath away. "A Max," she whispered, "their old dog." And then a blinding light burst across the room. The shadow screamed, folding into itself before vanishing completely, leaving behind the smell of smoke and burnt air. Silence followed. The mobile above the crib had stopped spinning. The light stabilized. Mike lowered the crucifix, his hands trembling. Sarah knelt beside Charlie, who lay motionless on the floor. Tears filled her eyes as she stroked his fur, whispering his name again and again. He opened his eyes one last time and looked at her, calm and knowing, before closing them forever. The house was safe, but the price had been paid. Days passed in a blur of grief and confusion. The priest returned, blessing every room once more. He told them quietly, "Whatever haunted this house was drawn to innocence. But it's gone now. Your protector saw to that." Sarah could only nod through her tears. She buried Charlie in the backyard beside Max's old grave, marking it with a small wooden cross. Every night after that, the baby slept peacefully. No whispers, no shadows, just quiet. Weeks later, Sarah checked the camera footage one last time before deleting it forever. On the final night, just before the light flared and the shadow vanished, the video showed something she hadn't seen before. Two figures standing side by side in front of the crib, Charlie and another larger golden retriever. Both were staring at the camera, their eyes glowing softly as if saying goodbye. Then the screen went dark. Months went by. The family healed slowly. The house once again filled with laughter. But sometimes late at night, Sarah swore she could still hear the faint jingle of a collar outside the baby's door, followed by a quiet sigh. Peaceful, protective. And though she never saw them again, she always left the nursery door open, just a little, in case her loyal guardians ever decided to come back. And so, the truth the hidden camera revealed was more than chilling. It was sacred. Charlie hadn't been watching them sleep out of curiosity or fear. He had been standing between their world and something unspeakable, protecting the family that had given him love. In the end, the puppy wasn't their pet. He was their guardian, one sent by something greater to finish what Max had started. And sometimes, when the moonlight hit the crib just right, Sarah still saw two faint paw prints glowing beside it, like a promise that love never truly died.